Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Garden of Sports. I'm your host, Zach Gardner, and alongside me is Jake Gardner.
Hey, everyone.
And together we make up the Garden of Sports. And today we're going to go over the fantasy football week 6 action. So today we're going to go over players of the week, notable injuries, trades, and must-grab waiver wire ads. Now that we're into bye weeks, these moves will be critical for wins, especially if you have a weak bench. So let's go.
Heck yeah, man. Couldn't be more enthusiastic. This is the time of fantasy football. I mean, people, I guess some people stop caring as much, but this is when you need to care the most. Especially like people that are undefeated at this point, or like the top seeds. They're not making any moves, which could screw them in the second half, and you can still win if you're 0-5. Like I've come back, and I'm sure you've come back too, Zach. You've had a bad record before and still made the playoffs, and I went to the championship one year with like a team that didn't start so well. So it's still important to try right now, and you can still win it. So players of the week.
I definitely agree with that.
For sure. Players of the week. We'll start with quarterback. I'll take that on Josh Allen. 28.72 fantasy points. You know, you're finally seeing why. I guess we said this last week, but you're seeing why he was the second quarterback off the board. Almost right next to Mahomes, so definitely worth it. Kirk Cousins, 28.52 fantasy points, nice bounce back. Prescott, showing he's a for sure top 5 QB, 26.8 fantasy points. Kyler Murray, 25.76 fantasy points, definitely going for that MVP. Matthew Stafford, 25.24 fantasy points. No surprise there. Just overall, before we go over running backs, I just feel, I mean, we'll discuss it more, but this week was finally the week where there wasn't a bunch of surprises. It was like all the stars in the game did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there was a couple, like Lamar Jackson. Like, even though they won, he didn't really do much stat-wise. But
couple duds, but not
yeah,
like
pretty
the
much.
past couple.
Pretty much this week was like bet the favorites and you won money type of week in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, now moving on to running backs. We got the king, Derrick Henry, coming in number 1, 34.6 fantasy points. And again, these are for a half-point PPR league, so just keep that in mind as we're running over these points. And then Jonathan Taylor, number 2, with 28.3 fantasy points. Nice to see him put together back-to-back good weeks now, finally. Jesus.
Yeah.
Third, Leonard Fournette, 27 fantasy points. Fourth, Joe Mixon, 23.8 fantasy points. Good to see him do something as well. And then fifth, Daryl Anderson Jr., 23.7 fantasy points. Kind of consistently making our list, seems like, every week. And
For sure. Yeah, wide receivers, CD Lamb, 31.6. Nice big bounce back for him as a wide receiver 1. You wanted to see that. Cooper Kupp, 29.5 fantasy points. Kind of a bounce back for him as well, because he had 2 down weeks, didn't he? So this was kind of him coming back to the first couple week form.
Well, he had one bust week 2 weeks ago. Last week was an average week, like 13 points is like kind of low for him. And then this was like back to what he did the first like 4 weeks.
Yeah, back to being like number 1. I don't know if he is number 1, but Adam Thielen, 24.3 fantasy points. Another guy who kind of bounced back to his star status. And then number 4, Donovan Peoples-Jones, 24.1 fantasy points. That's a big surprise there. Jalen Waddle, 24 fantasy points. Kind of a surprise there. I mean, people have talked about him, though. So he's kind of known as like a guy to pick up. And then I had to throw in at number 6. We usually don't do 6, but Antonio Brown, 19.8. It's notable because it's 3 weeks in a row. You didn't expect this consistency from him, so we'll talk more about him later in the show.
I feel like there's a certain person in the Garden of Sports that might have said he might be, back to being a top wide. Was that was me? Oh.
Well, I still disagree.
Yeah, I got you.
They're not gonna. We'll go over it though. We'll go over it.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, and then wrapping up top performers, I got the top 5 tight ends, and then we'll move on to some injuries. But number one tight end this week, Noah Fant, 20.2 fantasy points. He's one of those guys that's like you got like those top 6 or 7 tight ends that are like must starts every week, and then you got that next group of guys, and I feel like Fant is like the headliner of that like next group of tight ends, where it's like you kind of want to start him every week, but you're not sure. But he's good enough where you feel decent about starting him all the time. But he's not quite consistent enough yet. But it's good to see him kind of have a big week. Coming in at second was Mike Gesicki, 15.5 fantasy points, followed by Mark Andrews, 15.3 fantasy points. And then Travis Kelce, 13.9 fantasy points, and then OJ Howard, 13.9. And I've been talking about him since the beginning of the year, so it's nice to see him finally do decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right before Gronk comes back. Well,
Right.
actually, we'll go over that. Gronk's not going to play Thursday, so it is kind of a guy you could pick up. We'll talk about him more. Notable
Okay.
injuries. So Chris Carson, injured reserve. This is it's a couple days old, but anyway, that means he'll miss 3 games, so he'll be out till week 10. It's kind of a blow for people. He's probably a lot of people's number 2 running back if you had him. So if you didn't get a chance to grab his backup, we'll go over several running backs to grab as waiver wire ads, and then also possible trade targets. Michael Thomas, we were expecting him back after this bye week, right? Well, think again. It's going to be out several more weeks, is what the team's reporting. So it kind of sucks. Are you still trying to buy low on him at that point? Because we were talking about him, like, go for him.
Yeah, I think at this point that I don't think a lot of people, maybe when it gets closer to him maybe coming back, we can talk about it, but I don't think anybody's going to be
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah,
get him at this
because
point. But
everybody was thinking he'd come back, but now
and then
it's all messed up.
another 2
Uh,
injuries, kind of will lump them together. Nick
mm-hmm.
Chubb and Kareem Hunt injured. Nick Chubb's going to miss Thursday Night Football. Hopefully this is the only week that he misses. He might be back
Yeah.
next week, but Kareem Hunt put on IR. He's going to be out at least 3 weeks. That looked like a pretty scary injury that he had. So we'll see. Torn MCL. I'm thinking more like 5-6 weeks, but we'll see if he can get back sooner. But
Yeah.
that's a big a lot of fantasy teams because they were like the dynamic duo at running back. Like both of them must starts every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Dawson Knox, this is a big pickup for people, especially people who were desperate for a tight end. You got this guy a couple weeks ago, broken hand, but then the team said he won't miss much time. So you don't know how to take that. That means it could just be 1 to 2 weeks. That's
Well,
how I take it, but
I feel
you
like
don't
won't
know.
miss much time means that I feel like won't miss much time means that it's going to be a 2-week injury, which means he only misses 1 game because Buffalo is on bye this next week. So I take that
Yeah,
as he'll be back in 3 weeks. He might miss 1 game hopefully, and then he'll be back. So you were already expecting if you were starting Dawson Knox every week, you already knew most likely then that you had to have another tight end this week coming up. So hopefully you pick up a guy that's good enough you can start 2 weeks in a row before he comes back. That's
for
what I'm
sure. Yeah,
thinking.
we're going to go over several tight ends just because there were a couple tight end updates here, but Knox
Sometimes
might be the biggest.
you gotta read those tea leaves sometimes.
Oh my God. Gronkowski is still not back, like we said Thursday, so OJ Howard is like a must grab if you are one of the people who lost Dawson Knox, or you could be dealing with this Noah Fant foot injury. It's something to watch. There's no set timetable. He might still even play this Sunday, but there's nothing saying he will play yet, so we'll see. Especially if that big game, you're hoping he's going to be ready. But and then Antonio Gibson, this is a possible scary one. Underwent an MRI on his calf, so that could be a huge blow to your team. So we'll keep updates on that. Keep your eyes on that.
Yeah, kind of big injury news, and he still continues to play. Like he's got, we heard that he has a shin, like a hairline fracture in his shin, and he's still playing. And then he now he has a calf thing. This guy seems to be like the Frankenstein, I guess, of football players. He just keeps playing through all these injuries. I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on with that, but that's a little strange.
for sure. So this next section, bust of the week and buy low candidates. So I labeled all these guys as either busts or like a bust and buy low. So I'm gonna run through the busts really quick to save us some time and the viewer some time. And you
Hmm.
tell me, you stop me if you would buy low on one of them, or if there's even a chance you could. I thought there wasn't a chance you could. It was just like a 1 week
Yeah.
fluke. But I'll
Yeah.
run through. So Justin Herbert, a bust this week, like 11 fantasy points. Lamar Jackson, 11.78 fantasy points. Melvin Gordon, 8.8 fantasy points. Austin Eckler, his first real bad week. Not real bad, but 7.5 fantasy points. That's a bust. DJ Moore, 8.4 bust. Allen Robinson, 7.3. I put him as a still buy low, but
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
don't want to see what you say.
I think at this point, let's just kind of let him have a good week and go from there.
Yeah, well, we got to predict. We got to predict.
Yeah, I'm predicting that he is going to do what he's done the last 6 weeks, the rest of the season, and he'll have a couple. I just don't think that the Bears are a good enough passing offense to where you'd be willing to give up much for Allen
For
Robinson.
sure. But
At
any of
this
those
point,
other
I'd be waiting.
guys,
At this point, I'd be waiting for him to hit the waiver wire if you really want him.
for sure. I think people will bench stash him. But any of those other names, would you buy low, or can we move on to the
I don't think,
actual buy
and
lows?
yeah,
Okay,
we'll go on to the actual buy lows.
for sure. So Miles Sanders, 7.6 fantasy points. The team's just not using him correctly. He gets the yardage when he gets the
Well,
ball.
well, he's a guy that needs volume, and with
hmm
the run game being divvied up now with the quarterback that can run, I think that hurts him.
So you wouldn't buy low?
I don't think I would buy low just because if you're looking for the best runner on that team, you'd want the quarterback.
For
You know what
sure.
I'm,
Well, you
you know what
can't
I'm
trade for
saying?
him. Yeah, so if you need a running back, you wouldn't go for Miles. Maybe you go for, would
Uh,
you go for Zach Moss here?
I would probably rather go for a guy like Zach Moss, who can be a big part of the running game. They just got to get
Yeah,
him
so
going.
we talked about him as a buy low last week, is possibly the last week you could get him low, and then he had this bad week. So this might be just the golden opportunity to where you might not have to offer as much as last week.
This would be a great time to get him at his lowest value when he had a bad week and going into
hmm
buy. This would be where you can get him for a really lower offer than maybe you could like next week.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And then DK Metcalf, I put as a buy low only because he didn't have a good week, and he's got Geno Smith for the foreseeable future. So
Hmm.
somebody might be a little worried about him. So
Are they going
this
to
is
make a
kind of a
call
bigger.
into? Are they making a call to the Bears for Nick Foles?
Oh, they might give Geno another week, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, they would love to have Foles, I bet.
Thoughts and prayers with the Seahawks. I'm just
Well, didn't they just get Cam Newton just today?
um. I don't know
They
why
just
they would
grab
do
him?
that. Nick Foles has at least been through training camp and stuff and is in game shape. You would think, but
Uh,
I don't know. I'm just
it
thinking
says
that Foles.
Seahawks have reached out to Cam Newton, so
Oh, well, then they're
they're
just gonna do
talking with
that
him.
then. Okay, well, we'll
But
see how that goes.
that's not good for passing game either. So would you even want to buy low on DK? Or
Um, yeah, I feel like DK kind of goes as Russell Wilson goes. If they don't have a good quarterback that can throw a good deep ball like Russell Wilson can, which is one of the best in the league, then obviously that hurts all the receivers on that team. But yeah, I don't think I'd be. I don't know if I would give up anything for that situation right now. You know, it's a little
it's a
volatile.
high risk, high reward buy low.
Yeah,
You
definitely
could
high reward if Russ comes back at some point
He's still the
sooner.
number 10 wideout, but that could definitely fall off.
Exactly. That would scare some people off for sure.
It might be your only window, so that's why it's kind of like a toss up.
Well, if you're choosing between DK and Robinson, I would definitely go DK. But still, both are not
hmm
the greatest situations right now.
For sure, I agree. Let's go through. I have six guys at the bottom here that I think, I just want to hear your thoughts, I think are all potential buy lows. Amari Cooper, he had 8 fantasy points. He's obviously, he was kind of keeping up in targets, but I think he's definitely the number 2 at this point, wide out on the team.
Yeah,
Would you buy low?
he's. I would buy low just because why wouldn't you want to have one of the like 1A, 1B receivers in with him and Lamb?
Yeah.
Amari Cooper could go off with over 20 fantasy points any given week. You know, it's
hmm
just Dak finds everybody. It just depends on who's going to have a good game. Why wouldn't you want a guy that's on this like super offense this season?
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why I put him here at 8 fantasy points. And like he hasn't had like this huge week yet, which he will eventually have.
But he does have a
So,
high floor. Like we're talking about 8 fantasy points as
mhm.
like a bad week for him. And you know, there's a lot of guys that 8 fantasy points is like, you know, a lot of guys with less name value. You're like, oh, I'm happy with 8. You know, like it's not like eight's a terrible number.
uh, yeah, but you don't want your one of your main guys getting 8. You want your flex
Yeah, I
maybe
mean, if
getting
this is the
8
time to buy low and his worst week is 8, though, I'm saying like that's a good buy low.
for sure. I have to check if it's his worst week or if he's had a worse one, but yeah, for sure. Chase Edmonds, I think he's the more talented running back on Arizona, and he's had kind of a couple of lower weeks. They say he's playing
Yeah,
with a shoulder injury,
yeah,
but he's
I
got the moves. He's got the juice.
got the
Would you buy
moves.
low?
He's got the juice.
A high-powered offense.
The only duo system that I'm interested in is the Chubb Hunt duo, and if it's
hmm
not that duo, I'm out. Thanks, goodbye. Because two running back systems do not work out like 98% of the time. It's
hmm
you know it's like it's just a lot of mental gymnastics trying to figure out when to put the guy in playing matchups, and it's really you're just lucky a lot of the time when you're playing matchups with like 50-50 split 1-2 running backs situations, and
For sure.
that's exactly what they're doing. If you look at the carries every game, it's literally right down the middle split, and they're both catch the same amount of passes too. It's ridiculous. It's like they got copies like running out there. They just those two guys do the same exact things. You know, it's just
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, I
that's
can
something
see
I would
that.
stay away from. But you know, I feel like he does got the juice or whatever, but the other guy has just as much juice. So
Connor?
yeah, they're both like performing pretty similarly, getting the same amount of snaps and everything, same amount of targets.
For
I
sure. I
just
think it's just like if you need a running back and you can't make some big trade for a bigger running back, I think this is a guy to go for.
yeah, he would be like a fallback option. I could agree with that.
But yeah, there's not huge upside
He
because of what
wouldn't
you've just
he
said.
wouldn't be my first trade like, oh fuck yeah, I'm going for Chase Edmonds. He'd be like I
hmm
failed on a couple other trades and I'm like, okay, I think I could probably get this guy.
For sure. Yeah, I like that. I agree. Would you buy low on Brandon Ayuk? So this is my reasoning. San Francisco has not figured it out offensively. They need to involve more players to score more, honestly, and they need to figure out their system after their bye week. I think they're going to use them more than this. So, what do you think?
Well, Garoppolo is clearly the better quarterback, so I bet all the receivers on that team can't wait for him to get back because it is frustrating sometimes when you got a rookie out there who's learning on the job. You know, Trey
For
Lance
sure.
might be a great quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback right now. And I would buy low on Brandon Ayuk, hoping that Garoppolo comes back in like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So
I feel like this is one of the cheaper wideouts you could get, or like you said with Allen Robinson, somebody might drop him. I didn't drop him personally,
yeah,
but I definitely feel like you could get this guy for in a cheap trade.
you know, send over a cheap offer and don't feel bad if the guy declines it, but don't send
Yeah,
over something. Don't let the guy swindle you with freaking Brandon Ayuk.
for sure. I just think it's important that we push trades for people. Trades can win you the league. I know there's some like nitty gritty players out there who think you just need to pick be the waiver wire guy, but you're not going to get everybody off the waiver wire that you want. It's just not going to happen. So
Yeah.
trades can really help your team, especially filling in where you need it.
Yeah.
Because you're not always going to get the waiver wire target. Buy low on Calvin Ridley, so he missed the Jets game in England, sorry. And then they had a bye week, and so he hasn't really had his big game yet. And was drafted as a wide receiver 1. I feel like this is the buy low window.
Yeah, definitely the buy low window for him, and I would definitely be interested in something like that because history says that he's a pretty good, talented receiver. So, I feel like
He's too
at
good
some
to
point he's going to start
be like
going
this.
off.
Yeah, if you're just weak at wide receiver, or maybe you have some injuries at wideout, or maybe you want 2 number 1 wideouts, this is the guy to go for to be your second wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
But also, this one's going to be harder to get. Buy low on Terry McLaurin.
Well,
He's had
you
2
say he's
weaker.
harder to get, so is he really a buy low, or are people? You feel
Yeah,
like
because he
most
had
people.
he had 2 bad weeks now in fantasy. So I was trying to get
Okay.
him 3 weeks ago after his big game, but nobody was trading. This is how I view it. It's like my chance right now.
Well, hey, shooters got to shoot. Shoot your
Because
shot,
the
man.
quarterback,
Try and
the
get him.
quarterback's up and down.
Yeah, the quarterback is up and down, but Terry McLaurin is kind of a transcendent type talent. So at some point,
Yeah.
he's going to get his numbers. So I would definitely
Yeah,
try
this
and
would be
get
a
him
big
if you can.
package to get him, but
Yeah,
it'll be less of a package than 2 weeks ago.
yeah, but
It's a guy
big
to target
packages
though.
win leagues.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's true. Balls out in your trades, guys.
Yeah, there you go.
So because of Antonio Brown going crazy the past couple weeks, right? I think
Yeah,
Chris Godwin has had a couple of rough weeks due to that, but he is due for a couple big weeks, honestly.
he's
The
due
rest
for a
of the
couple
year.
big weeks. That whole team is like we talked about at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, with that team, how many talented guys are on that offense? A guy
Mm-hmm.
being really consistent on that team is definitely like star level. So we felt like all those 3 receivers, mainly the receivers, is what we were talking about. We were talking about Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are all going to get theirs at some point during the season. And, Antonio Brown's had the good last couple weeks. Chris Godwin had like the first 2 weeks were like really good for him. And then like Mike Evans was right in between. It went like Godwin had 2 weeks, Evans had 2 weeks, and now Antonio Brown's had 3 weeks. It's gonna go in cycles. So I would definitely buy low on Chris Godwin if frustrated enough, but he still hasn't been doing terrible. He's been getting like 7 or 8 a
Yeah, it's
week.
just not what you want from him. So people could be frustrated.
Yeah, people could be frustrated, and then you can capitalize on it and get a good receiver heading into like the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, I say go for it. Obviously,
Yeah,
the easiest one to get would be Brandon Ayuk for the wideouts, maybe Allen Robinson, and then the harder ones would be in this order, probably Chris Godwin, Ridley, McLaurin, DK
yeah.
Metcalf. And yeah, I didn't really have any buy low running backs because the ones who had duds were just really good players.
We're the good ones. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
gotcha.
maybe you would go for Melvin Gordon if you really wanted that, but I don't see anybody wanting that necessarily.
I would say out of this list, the best buy low that you should try and go for right now is Amari Cooper. I think anybody should go and try and get that done
For sure.
this week.
Yeah. But yeah, running backs, I was just saying that all the good ones went off, so you can't really
Oh
buy
yeah,
low right now. So it's
yeah.
just like it was a
Running
running back
back.
week.
This was like the easiest running back like set your lineup week I've ever had.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to what we said earlier. I was struggling to find sell highs because all the star players went off for the most
Right.
part, besides some of these buy lows we talked about. But then you're not selling high on those guys, and you're not selling high on all those stars that you're definitely keeping on your team. So I have a list of 5 here. And if you can think of any others, feel free. But the biggest one would be Daryl Anderson Jr., who is now a top 10 running back because he keeps going off. I kind of want to keep. I'm on the fence
That's
now.
tough because
But
it's tough when you got a guy that is in the top 10.
mhm.
Because
He's probably your flex.
a lot of times what you're doing is you're giving him up for a guy ranked lower than him that you think is going to have a better opportunity the rest of the season. And
Yep.
that's like a big risk you take with that type of situation.
Oh, that's why it's a sell high. But yeah.
Right. But you're selling high, but you're not selling them high for like, you're not getting like, you're not going to get like Saquon Barkley or something out of it, probably most likely. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, if you have Daryl Henderson, you probably drafted him late,
Yeah.
or you
Well,
even picked him up off the
okay
waiver,
too,
and
then
he's your
maybe.
flex. And like, if you already have two good running backs, why wouldn't you sell this guy high for another top wideout to
Okay,
strengthen
so
yourself
I
elsewhere?
see what you're saying. Maybe you can trade him for like one of those wide receivers we were talking about.
Terry McLaurin,
Maybe a Terry
Calvin
McLaurin,
Ridley, would that be
something like
worth it?
that. Yeah, maybe something
Because
like
we
that.
know the injury history as well. So it's like
Yeah.
you want to keep. It's easy to say, and this is what a lot of players do, like inexperienced players. It's easy to say, oh, I'm going to keep them. They're hot right now. But you have to try to look to the future and see that these guys are either going to fall off or they have an injury history and they're not going to keep it up.
Yeah.
So it's just like, that's what we're trying to do in the show is give you good predictions on what to do with these players. So you're not just, because otherwise, yeah, you're just holding guys, but then they're going to fall off and you're not going to finish the season strong.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it. But he
Hmm.
could, see, this one is, I am on the fence, even though I said that. I am on the fence now that he had another one. But God, dude, I know the injury history. And if I need a wide out, I think it's worth it. Like if you're weak at wide receiver, why
Yeah,
not?
I definitely, if I was a Daryl Henderson owner, I would definitely be trying to capitalize on that.
It might be the most he's worth right now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he might be at his highest value.
And then speaking of running backs, Leonard Fournette had another guy, just like Antonio Brown on that team that had a 3 weeks in a row of just great play. But we know Fournette's knees, like they're
Yeah.
they're somewhat shot. He had 3 good weeks, but I'm sure he's pretty sore right now, and he's got bad injury history with those. That's why he
Yeah,
ended up here.
yeah, definitely selling high on Leonard Fournette. This is
I'm
when you could
still
get the
there.
most for him right now.
We've been saying that, yeah, for the past 3 weeks, and now it just keeps adding on to itself. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's going to keep getting touchdowns because he's the bigger back, right? So he'll
Yeah,
get the touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to keep having breakthrough runs.
right.
That's my thing, and it's another one that I he might have been your RB2, but I feel like he would have been your RB3 if you
Hmm.
drafted well,
Oh,
and he
he's
was
most
just like a
people's
later guy.
RB3. Yeah.
So it's another one you could use to fill other positions.
Yeah.
Um, Antonio Brown. So this one's getting harder and harder, but 3 weeks in a row, and he's finally looking like back to form officially. I just didn't see the consistency for 3 weeks. We did say Chris Godwin's due, and we know there'll be a few weeks where Antonio Brown doesn't do well. So are you still selling high?
Definitely. He's the perfect sell high right now. He's had 3 good weeks. This is where you can get probably the most value for him right now. Like you could maybe think big, try trading him, maybe include somebody else and go for like, let's see, maybe you could go for like a Saquon Barkley or something.
Yeah, a guy that's out right now, coming back. Like maybe a team needs wins, and they can't just hold Saquon.
Yeah.
Sell some of
I
these
think
guys who
I
have
think you could
3 good
definitely use
weeks.
him and just shoot for the stars with a guy that's gone
Sure,
off 3 weeks in a row like that.
totally agree.
And
Totally
he
agree.
still
Because
has some name value as well.
yeah, big name for sure with this history. Sell high and Khalil Herbert.
So I think we can loop the Daryl Williams. Okay, I thought you said Damien Williams there. No, that's Daryl Williams. Okay, yeah,
No,
Khalil Herbert definitely would be selling high. I love the kid. I'm a Chicago Bears fan, so you
Mm-hmm.
know it was awesome to see Khalil Herbert on his first start have a really good game. But let's be honest, Montgomery's coming back in like a couple weeks. Damien Williams is already back this next weekend. I feel like this was probably the best week Herbert's going to have just because he got all the volume and he's not going to be getting all the volume for probably the rest of the season now.
Yeah, this is the best one because Damien missed with COVID, right? It was COVID protocols.
But don't you feel
Um,
like most people are like going to be aware of that kind of though? And maybe you wouldn't be able to get as
Maybe. I
much.
mean, this isn't as big as a sell high as the top three, but
But maybe you could do it to get
you try to get something.
who's one of the guys we were saying buy low on. Maybe you could use
Brandon
him to
Ayuk,
maybe you could use him to get like Brandon Ayuk. Like out of what that would be a nice
upside
little trade.
guys.
Yeah,
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 rest of the season upside guys, not
right.
guys who haven't gone off yet or done something yet. But you can use Herbert, who had his big week, because
Because
they're gonna get these other running backs back.
at this point, yeah, he had a good week out of necessity, but I don't think anybody, even Bears fans, can for sure say that he's going to be taking snaps away from Damien Williams. We have to see that,
Yep, because they're both playing well.
because Damien Williams missed with COVID. It wasn't even any kind of injury that he's got to work his way back from. He was on the COVID list. So Damien Williams will still be coming back in top shape next week,
Definitely. Definitely. No, I totally agree. So the next guy is Daryl Williams. He filled in as the starting running back in Kansas City. Went off, 22.4 fantasy points.
Yeah,
I'm thinking sell high. I mean, everybody makes somebody like a god after they have one good week, and they're like, oh, like he was a grab last week. Now why wouldn't you sell high? That's how I see it. But
yeah, definitely. Why wouldn't you sell high? Especially he has a little more value than maybe Khalil Herbert. They're about kind of in the same
yep,
situation, but he has more value than Khalil Herbert because we at least know that there's at least 2 more weeks of Daryl Williams being the starter
yep.
and being the main, getting all the volume. So he could definitely get you a little more in some trade because he's going to be getting all the carries the next 2 weeks at least.
Yeah, and this is the argument that people are starting to make in like the fantasy circles. They're like, "Oh, he's playing better than Clyde Edwards has all year, so he might take over the starting job."
Yes, that's true, but we have to see more than one game of that because next
Yeah,
week now teams are going to game plan for where he likes to run and what holes he what lineman he
yeah,
likes to run behind. They're going to game plan for all that. The first week is always the easiest week to start the backup.
definitely. Yeah, I totally agree. And their legs are fresh, so they're not bruised up.
Yeah, I mean Daryl Williams could easily get you 6 next weekend because the team game plans for him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. And this, you know what? I would keep him if, for like, say you have Saquon and you had to grab Daryl, and he's your second running back. He's not even your
Yeah.
flex.
And also
But if he's your flex,
this
trade him.
depends on your buy situation too. I
Yeah,
mean, if you're in a good situation with your running backs and you don't need Daryl Williams for the next look at your buys not just for this week but for the upcoming few weeks. And if you're not going to need Daryl Williams, uh, then he definitely would be a great sell high. But now we have to also think about your buy situation if you're going to be making trades because you don't want to screw yourself if you make a trade and then you can't start somebody because you got a bunch of buys
yeah.
happening.
Look at your next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll stick with. I'm keeping him if he's my number 2 running back for now with like injuries or something. But if he was your flex play and he went off, that's great. You probably won, but you could sell
Yeah.
him.
And then real
You
quick,
don't need him.
I kind of miss those days a few years ago when the two running backs on the team were when they went to the Super Bowl were
Hmm.
Damien Williams and Daryl Williams. Yeah, those were fun days with the two D Williams.
Oh my god. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely miss those. Uh, now it's time for scoop 'em up.
Scoop them up.
So I want to hit the tight ends first. Yeah, we'll have a soundbite.
I just,
But
just think we let me work my magic.
My God. So I want to hit tight ends first because we just talked about several tight ends with injuries. And if you were a Dawson Knox guy, that was probably your main one because you had to use a waiver to grab a tight end a couple weeks ago because you didn't have one, is my guess. So one we already talked about, OJ Howard, 13.9 fantasy points last week, and Gronk won't play this Thursday. So you know OJ Howard has at least one more start, is probably the go-to guy tight end wise. So
yeah,
I'll pick him up for a stream.
Pick him up for a stream, scoop him up.
For sure.
And then I have one that you actually didn't write down on this list that I think is a good app.
Okay.
So he was available in a few leagues that I'm in that I noticed, so I feel like I'm in pretty competitive leagues, so I feel like this might be similar across most leagues then. Okay. So definitely go check. See if Zach Ertz is on your waiver wire. He just got traded to Arizona. Had a good game in Philly.
I went and checked all 4 of my leagues right when it happened, and he was not available. It's like everyone stashed him on their bench. I don't get it.
I picked him up to start last week because I had somebody on bye on one of my team, a tight end on bye. So I picked up. Oh no, I picked him up because I had Dallas Goedert was out last week, so I picked up Ertz, and then he gets traded to Arizona. Now I'm keeping him. I was just gonna pick him up for a stream, and I ended up keeping him. Now I got because now he's on Arizona, so I kind of lucked into Zach Ertz, got him a week early, so did the same thing happened with Dawson Knox. I picked him up a week early, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Big stretch.
But yeah, go check on Zach Ertz, see if he's available. He's kind of like a must pick up right now. He's a must scoop.
Definitely.
Top scoop.
So, and then Ricky Seals-Jones, Washington tight end, because Logan Thomas is on IR, so he's a guy to grab to at least stream while you're waiting to hear back from your tight end areas.
Yeah,
nothing else really there, but
he has my seal of approval.
Yeah. So those would be your tight ends. Let's do wideouts and then running backs last. So AJ Green, we've talked about as just like a fill-in guy, like a waiver guy, but he has had 4 out of 6 weeks. He's had about 15 fantasy points. So it's not a fluke anymore. He's a guy you could throw in your flex anytime for when other guys have bye weeks.
Why not go pick him up? And you probably can just wait until tomorrow morning, not even use a claim. You could probably maybe just go add him because it's been like that this whole season so far. I don't know if I'd be putting a waiver claim in for him. I'd just be banking on that no one's going to pick him up and you can get him tomorrow morning without having to use a waiver claim.
I don't know, man, because he had, like I said, 4 out of 6 good weeks. So at this point,
but I feel like people are still going to look at him and be like, "Oh, he's old."
They could, but it's a high-powered offense, and people are starting to think they're going to the Super Bowl. And
yeah,
I don't know. It's just a good. I guess it depends on your need. If you need a wideout, I think it's worth a waiver. And he's probably one of the better flex options at this point with that many good weeks. And then I put Christian Kirk after him because he's on the same team, has not had as many good weeks, but he still has had 3 out of 6, or at least 2 out of 6 were really good.
He's more, he might be more the guy that you can definitely probably just add, not have to use a claim.
Yeah, totally agree. So, yeah, that might be the weakest ad. So,
yeah, one of them.
And then Marquis Callaway. So, with the Michael Thomas news, and with Marquis Callaway having a bye week, people might not have grabbed him after his huge week 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So this might be the best wide receiver to grab because now Michael Thomas might not be back for another 3-4 weeks. Marquise can build on his great play 2 weeks ago. I think he's still only like 44% owned. So that's the wideout. I feel if he hasn't been grabbed, I've seen him in most of in a 12-person league. I've seen him. So He's probably available. My screen just blacked out for a second. All right, and then running backs, I have Chris Evans, the Cincinnati Bengals rookie running back. He rushed for almost 50 yards, and he also caught some passes for 50 yards and a touchdown. So I think he's worth a grab as a handcuff because Joe Mixon gets hurt almost every year.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I didn't even know Cincinnati had a guy like that.
And it's a good offense. So
it's a great handcuff. I think
and if it's a running back who can also catch, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Definitely he's not highly owned yet, but worth a bench spot.
Yeah.
And then a bigger running back to grab because of injuries, Devonte Freeman, 11.3 fantasy points, and he could take over lead back duties since Latavius Murray hurt his ankle.
Okay.
So I think he's a good grab. I mean, you could also try Le'Veon Bell or the rookie, but the rookie, I believe is a rookie, has been bad, the Baltimore running back. So I think Devonte Freeman might be taking it over. Yeah, and he was the first one to come up before Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, I think Devonte Freeman is a good ad. We kind of talked about it at the time that he might be a good ad, but I think he's definitely going to be the lead back, at least for the next couple weeks.
For sure.
To look at,
And then the must grab of the week is J.D. Mckissick.
Is he 15 fantasy? I mean, he's got to be highly owned at this point.
Nope, he's only like 55.
Wow. Okay, definitely.
And with Antonio Gibson, having an MRI on his calf, he could be out. I predict at least 2 to 3 weeks minimum.
But he's available in 0% of the leagues I'm in, so that's fun.
I'm just saying that means there's still enough leagues where it's worthy.
Yeah, there's enough there. Yeah, definitely go and check. You might be in one of those leagues where he's available.
He's the number one running back. If he's not available, go Devonte Freeman.
Yeah.
If he's not available, Chris Evans. And that closes out our must-grab waiver ads. I mean, now it's getting a bit more barren. That's why these trades are important.
Yeah, this is just kind of like the nitty-gritty time of the year where you're just... One of the hard parts can be, do you have good backup pieces for bye week starting now? That's like the main thing at this point. So definitely these trades are very important. So hopefully we've helped you come up with some scenarios and are helping you build a winning team. So far, I mean, if you have followed all of our advice, you have to be an undefeated record because, I mean, we're giving you good stuff here.
I think so. I mean, I've had, just based on my draft, and so every league, I probably shouldn't do this. I need to go off my list more. But if I do an additional league, I always try to go off the chain, off the list, and go with more risky players. And that just screws me sometimes. So I do have some leagues where I'm 2-4 and not doing well. But yeah, he should be. But those leagues are also, now I'm set up so I started weak because those fluke weeks in the beginning and some of your star players might not have turned out. So I started kind of weak, but now, based on just our research and everything, we kind of developed, those teams are still set up for success and playoff bound.
Yeah.
So I would agree on that. Not to toot our own horn too much. We did.
Well, I
missing a couple of guys. Our main miss so far is Robbie Anderson. I really did think he could just have a better week than this. He did get a touchdown this week, but it's not that great. So
yeah, but I feel like you and me were kind of 50-50 on that, so it's not,
Yeah, it's not. That's our only miss.
Yeah, your only miss.
Oh my god! All right. Well, we have a fantasy basketball draft in 5 minutes, so let's close this out. Thanks, everyone.
Let's do that. The Garden of Sports. It never ends over here, guys. Let me tell
Garden of Sports, but no, this is primetime sports time, baby.
Primetime sports time.
3 major sports. Baseball playoffs are going on, just not fantasy. Still fun. You can still bet on it. Love this time of year.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. That's another episode in the books, and have a great week, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.